We need to talk about Britney Spears' toxic conservatorship and the Free Britney movement. Britney Spears has been stuck in a legal situation against her will for the last 12 years, and I've been on the sidelines through the whole thing. I've personally spent my entire adult life documenting every detail of this seemingly never-ending situation, and I get asked a lot of questions about it, so I figured this would be a good opportunity to open up. I've had a really interesting and unique perspective talking about the conservatorship through all these years, and I want you guys to get to know me more, especially through the Free Britney lens. But first, play that intro. Hey guys, what's up? This is Jordan Miller. I'm the owner and founder of BreatheHeavy. First of all, before I jump into the video, I just want to say thank you so much for all the love and support you guys showed me on my last video, what I consider the first official video of BreatheHeavy video with Jordan Miller. That's me. Launching a new venture like this can be pretty freaking scary, and I was really nervous hitting that submit button. But I want to be an example for you guys. If you're nervous to pursue something like one of your goals or one of your dreams, that you can watch this channel and find some inspiration. The reaction was actually pretty overwhelming in a good way, which reminds me, please make sure you smash that like button, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. What that does is that shows YouTube that people are engaging with my videos, and then in return, they show my videos to more people who hopefully do the same thing, and then my channel begins to grow, which means I can create more awesome content for you. One of the goals of this channel also is to show that building your own community off of social media and off of YouTube can really take your business to the next level. And I want to show you guys that I'm living proof of that. So if you're watching this video, I'm sure you've at least heard of the Free Britney movement. Now, I'm not going to list a timeline of events that have led up to Britney's conservatorship and the Free Britney movement, because that could literally be like a 10-hour-long video. But I will link one of my favorite YouTube documentaries by Spill in the description. They did an awesome series on Britney's conservatorship and the timeline leading up to everything. So in case you're just curious of even what's going on or just need a refresher, definitely check that out. So I think the best way for me to go about this is to tell you what a conservatorship is. It's a court-approved legal situation that essentially takes away someone's rights because the court's deemed that person is incompetent, meaning they can't function day to day. They can't necessarily feed themselves or clothe themselves, really just function. And in Britney's case, it's just very strange because if a court deems someone incompetent, yet Britney Spears is in a conservatorship, but she was able to put on tours and albums and interviews and just everything she's done over the last 12 years, it seems strange that someone like her would be in such a thing. As we all know, Britney had a really tumultuous couple years in 2006, 2007. So it led to her father going to a judge and essentially putting in an emergency conservatorship over Britney's life without her consent. And actually, when she found out about it, she tried to fight it and tried to hire her own lawyer. And eventually the conservatorship team was able to get a restraining order against this lawyer on behalf of Britney because the court now gave them power to do so. And so Britney's been seemingly powerless in this situation for many years. So if you've been following Britney for these last 12 years with this conservatorship, you'll know that there's kind of ebbs and flows with how this conservatorship goes in relation to her mental health. Now, obviously, I'm no doctor or psychologist or anything in that realm. This is just my own observations documenting this for the last 12 years. This is just my take on everything. So we've seen her do really well at times. For instance, in the circus era, which was the era that happened right after the conservatorship was put in place. She was touring, put out the album, was doing interviews. She looked awesome. And then during the femme fatale era, which was the next era, she didn't appear to be doing as well. But she managed to just pull herself out of that again when she did Britney Jean, and then eventually Glory, to me, was one of the peaks of her career. Her body was not only just insanely fit, like an athlete's body, but she just sounded so cogent and clear in all the interviews that she gave. But here we are a couple years later, and Piece of Me concludes, and she's about to embark on another Vegas residency called Domination. Now, Domination was abruptly canceled, and it was said it was because Britney was gonna take care of her father, Jamie, who's her conservator, because he was struggling with his health. This is where things start to get really weird and eerie and strange. All of a sudden, the show's canceled and Britney seemingly disappears for weeks, if not months, which is pretty rare because she consistently posts on Instagram here and there, but at this point, she was completely MIA for months at a time. So fans were getting extremely suspicious of what was going on. and we find out that she was in a mental health facility. Now the real question is, did she check into this mental health facility on her own volition, or was she forced into it? According to an emergency podcast by Britney's Gram, Britney was put into the mental health facility against her will and given medication that she didn't want to take. This is where the Free Britney movement really takes off, because now the fan base is uniting to shed light on this perceived injustice that's going on to Britney in front of our own eyes. Because I've been following the conservatorship since day one, I get asked every single day about it. So instead of me just like spouting off my random thoughts about it, I figured it'd be best to open this up to the Breathe Heavy community. So what I did was posted a sticker on Breathe Heavy's Insta stories asking people to submit a Free Britney related question. So here's that. All right guys, so what I'm gonna do now is ask the Breathe Heavy community on Instagram to submit a Free Britney related question, and I'm gonna do that through the story section using a sticker. And there it is. So now I'll just wait a couple hours to get the questions queued up, and I'll see you soon. Okay guys, I have all the questions queued up. But before we begin, first off, I just want to say for you to smash that like button. Second of all, I want to clarify that the Free Britney movement is not something that I want to take any ownership of or claim it in any kind of way. The Free Britney movement took place after the Britney's Gram voicemail surfaced. That's when things really came to a head, and this Free Britney movement took a whole new life of its own. In terms of the phrase Free Britney, it is something that I was signing off all my posts with in January 2009, a year after the conservatorship was made permanent, because mind you, it was meant to be temporary. But those posts and everything I was saying back then, I just want to make sure that nobody thinks I'm taking credit for any of this, or that I'm trying to make myself a star of any of this Free Britney stuff. There's often times where people can look like they're using Britney for notoriety or for fame or anything like that. She is a big part of my website and my community, but I want to make sure that she is the one that we're focusing on, and this isn't about me. So there are literally dozens, if not hundreds of questions submitted, and obviously we don't have time to go through all of them. We can definitely make a part 2 video if that's what you guys want. Let me know in the comments. So I'll just cherry pick some of the ones that I'd like to answer now. Just like once again, want to put out there that this is all speculation. I don't actually know her. The first question is, do you think Britney would get more provocative or conservative once she's free? That's actually a really interesting question, because she's in a conservatorship currently, and if you take a look at her Instagram, she is not shy about hiding her body. And we can look back in these 12 years in her career and see there were times when she was trying to be more conservative. For example, in the Work Bitch music video, she had mentioned that the video was meant to be even racier than it was, but she just decided against it because that wasn't the vibe she ultimately wanted to go with. You also have to keep in mind that she has 2 fairly young sons in their teens now, and through that lens, she's a mom keeping her sons in mind. I can understand why she wouldn't want to be as racy. But then again, here we are in 2020 and Britney's dancing seductively to Madonna. So it's hard for me to predict, but honestly, I feel like she'll find that balance. I think that she'll want to be sexy because this weight's been lifted off of her. I'd like to see her be provocative when she chooses and conservative when she chooses. Ultimately, the whole notion of the conservatorship being lifted or these legal restraints being lifted or whatever compromise they end up finding, I just want Britney to feel empowered, and I'm not convinced that she does entirely right now. When do you personally think Britney is going to be free? I personally do see a light at the end of the tunnel with this. It's hard to say when, because this has been going on for 12 years and my mind is just so conditioned to think that it's just gonna go on, which I'm sure if anyone can relate to that concept, it's Britney. But I think that there's so many things that are mounting on top of one another right now that it's only inevitable for the house of cards to fall. I don't know if they're gonna end the conservatorship entirely. I do see a shift happening. I think that if things remain status quo, Britney will just never work. And if that happens, the revenue's not gonna be coming in. One of the big themes of this conservatorship is money. One of Britney's previous conservators, his name's Andrew Wallet, he actually resigned and then recently tried to get back into the conservatorship. He called this conservatorship once a hybrid business model. He takes credit for helping Britney tour and become lucrative again. And I find that so interesting to call it a hybrid business model, because conservatorships aren't meant for business. They're meant to keep the person, essentially keep their assets and keep their personal lives functioning in a way where someone's looking out for them. But when the people looking out for them have an incentive, that's where things get problematic, which is exactly the situation Britney finds herself in currently. Do you think she'll retire once it's all over? Honestly, I don't see that happening. I think Britney, for the most part, likes working. I think if you find your purpose in life and you find joy out of working, I think Britney genuinely enjoys performing. I think she's not performing currently because it makes all the powers that be make all this money and she doesn't have any control over her own finances. So at this point, she's just protesting to work because she's basically hitting them where it hurts. So I don't think she'll retire because I think, you know, she's only 38 years old and work gives people, and including her, I think, a lot of fulfillment. I can see her taking an extended break in between eras, but I don't see her retiring forever. It would surprise me. I like this question. Once the conservatorship is over, will we hear Britney's story, perhaps through music? I really, really hope so. And I actually think about this a lot. I would love for Britney to put out a new album eventually, once the dust is settled, where all the songs pertain to themes of freedom, liberation, control, empowerment, and explained her story through the music. Some of her albums that have done that, for instance, Blackout. Blackout's, you know, her most critically acclaimed album because it just resonated so perfectly with the time period that it was recorded in 2007. It was like this dark pop vibey album, and the lyrical content reflected her life in many of the songs. Justin Tranter, who's an amazing songwriter, he's created like countless hits. He worked on Britney's last album, Glory. He was executive producing Britney's 10th studio album, which fans dub B10. And I know that he looped Danja in. Danja is a producer that worked on Blackout almost exclusively. And they appeared to be working on Britney's new album at some point last year, but obviously everything has happened and that's put on hold. But I really hope that Danja is still in the mix when it's all said and done. By the way, RCA, if you're watching this, please hit up your boy. I have some amazing ideas for B10 and I just would love to be a part of that. If you have any ideas for Britney's 10th album, please drop a line in the comments. I'd love to see what you guys think. Here's a question that's semi-free Britney related. Are we still being kind to Jamie Lynn? Jamie Lynn is Britney's younger sister, and I do want to talk about this. On my website and just in the fandom in general, Jamie Lynn is getting a lot of heat because people believe that she has ties to a woman named Lou Taylor, and Lou Taylor is Britney's current business manager. And Lou Taylor is someone who is very much disliked in the Britney fandom, and there's just a ton of allegations against her about how she's done Britney dirty, basically. There were some leaked emails allegedly by Britney, and in those emails, whoever this woman is, it's supposed to be Britney, calls Lou Taylor a stalker. Obviously, we can't confirm that these emails were or were not Britney, but at face value, fans are believing that, and there's just a lot of evidence for corruption, allegedly. Even recently, Britney's lawyer, Sam Ingham, released a document showing Lou Taylor requesting $500,000 from Jamie Spears for last year. And keep in mind, Britney didn't even perform last year, so why she wanted $500,000 is, who knows? But Jamie Spears just approved it. And that's one reason why fans are so up in arms, is because it appears that Britney's money is just being mismanaged. By the way, Britney's trying to get an independent third party to manage her trust, and her father's currently fighting that. Someone asked, I know it's not the status of the OJ trial, but why isn't this being televised? It's only up until about last week or 2 weeks ago that things weren't being sealed. So for over a decade, everything about this conservatorship in the court essentially was being sealed, meaning we didn't have any access to any privy information. Now, what's really interesting is that recently Britney, through her lawyer, said she doesn't mind things to be unsealed because she really has nothing to hide, and that she doesn't want this whole conservatorship thing to be a dark family secret. So that was an effort on Britney's behalf to be more transparent with everybody, which transparency is a very key thing right now because that's something that's lacked throughout this whole thing. And that's why there's so many rumors and conspiracy theories and speculation, because we don't have any real concrete information for the most part. So Britney offering that was actually huge, which reminds me, something else that happened that was kind of a game changer was Britney saying that she appreciates the fans' support through all of this. And why that's such a big deal is because for over 12 years, I've wondered if I'm doing more damage than good. By me speaking about this conservatorship on my website so publicly for all these years, I always wondered, am I doing her harm? And I basically wondered that for 12 entire years. The last thing I want to do is harm Britney or make her feel any sort of anxiety or make the fan base look a certain way. I just want to support and promote her in the best light possible. So for her to put that statement out through her lawyer was just such a huge sigh of relief. Now, one thing I want to remind you about is that Britney can't technically hire a lawyer. Like I mentioned before, she tried to do this earlier in 2008 when this was first put into place, and eventually the conservatorship team got a restraining order against that lawyer. There are voicemails that are on the internet that, in my opinion, are definitely Britney. It sounds like Britney to me. And in these voicemails, she is trying to hire a lawyer, and she's basically saying she fears that her kids are gonna be taken away from her. Just basically everything she says in these voicemails, she's worried that could happen to her, ends up happening to her. There was definitely a reason for her to have concern. Someone asked, does it make you uncomfortable reporting on this? And it definitely does. There are times when I do feel uncomfortable talking about this because I feel like no matter what I say, it could get twisted and used against me in some way. But ultimately, what I've really embraced is that I know at the bottom of my heart that I am supporting Britney and that I have my best interests for her and for her as a human being first and foremost versus Britney Spears the brand. And one thing that I want to address is that BreatheHeavy is a business. BreatheHeavy generates revenue, and a big portion of the stories that go on BreatheHeavy are Britney related. So I've really struggled over these years with the whole notion of me profiting off of Britney's conservatorship. And just recently, someone that used to work with Britney attacked me on Instagram saying that I'm basically profiting off of the Free Britney movement. And that actually really hurt my feelings because if it were up to me, I would love to be reporting about Britney's latest performances or whatever award show she attended, just anything career related. But that's not the situation we're in. And right now, it's more important to me to be able to disseminate all this important information for people. Mind you, there's hundreds of thousands of people that read BreatheHeavy every month. So if I'm gonna be attacked and people claim that I'm using Britney and using the Free Britney situation for personal gain, everyone's allowed to have their own opinion, but I'd like to tell you that I personally don't see it that way. So when I talk about this, I get a little frazzled because ultimately I don't want people to think that I'm using her and that I'm profiting off of the Free Britney situation. I mean, Britney is in a situation that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. The last thing I want is for people to think that I'm using Britney for personal gain. And it is true that my website generates revenue from traffic and from Britney stories. But if it were up to me, I would much rather take a loss financially and not be talking about this Free Britney situation. I'd rather be talking about her performances or whatever award show she attended. But this is a necessary evil right now. And it's something that I'm willing to be kind of a punching bag for at the end of the day, because I know that disseminating this information to hundreds of thousands of people is more important than what toxic trolls say on Instagram. This is a great question. Why doesn't she just go to the media herself and expose it all? This is something that I actually have wondered quite a lot. Why doesn't she just come forward and say that this is an unjust situation? I think that we don't have all the information. So for us to say that it's just so easy for her to just go outside, grab a microphone and just share her truth, or go on Instagram Live and say everything. Keep in mind that Britney's been in this situation for 12 years, and that definitely takes a toll on somebody. She may also be okay with the conservatorship, just not who's in charge of it. And I'm a little nervous to say that because I think fans may jump down my throat, but she could very well be okay with people handling her personal and financial things, just not her father. Right now, as it stands, it appears that Britney doesn't have very much control over her life, whether she can drive freely or not, get married, have kids, hire her own doctor or lawyer. Her custodial time has been affected by all this. I think there's a bunch of factors at play that we just don't know about because we don't have all the information. Even right now, Britney's dad is going to the judge and saying, we want to hear from Britney herself. And Britney's lawyer, Sam Ingham, is saying that he's essentially the mouthpiece. And what I think is so interesting about that is that because Britney's in a conservatorship, she's deemed in the eyes of the court incompetent. Therefore, she actually can't speak for herself. That's why she's in a conservatorship. And guess what? The conservatorship was put in place by her dad. And for many, many years, her dad was able to get her out of other legal situations, claiming that court was too stressful for her and that it would be a big detriment to her mental health if she participated. But now he's saying he wants to hear directly from her. So it appears that Britney's lawyer is giving Jamie, her dad, a taste of his own medicine. I do hope that Britney finds the strength and the courage one day to be able to open up about this. It does feel like the media has just burned her so much, but I do think that she could inspire so many people with her story if she came forward and explained it in a way that would resonate with everybody. And that doesn't need to be a sit-down, scary, pressurized interview with Oprah or anything. I'd actually love to see Britney put out a book. That way she has the time to get her thoughts out and work with somebody on how to say everything, but do it in her own way. And like I mentioned before, it would be phenomenal to have a Britney album that touched on this entire thing. Someone asked, do you believe Team Britney are reporting fan accounts and having them removed? So I did hear about this. There was a handful of Free Britney related oh, this is my cat. Go, 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 go. Okay. So anyway, I did hear about this, that several Free Britney related Instagram accounts were suspended or terminated. And I've actually had that happen to me before, where my social media accounts were deactivated, in my opinion, for ulterior motives. So I've just personally learned to be very careful with what I say and how I say it on social media, so that social media platforms like Instagram can't take my account down for certain things that I say. I think that if there's an overt display of Free Britney stuff, Instagram at their discretion decides that it's hate speech, which I don't necessarily agree with. I'm just saying that's what I think might be happening, which is a form of censorship, which is obviously adding to the problem here. By the way, Britney's father tried to sue me in 2009 for speaking out about the conservatorship, but it was masked behind copyright. He didn't just come after me for speaking out about the conservatorship directly. So I got another Jamie Lynn question, and I just realized that I went off a tangent on the other Jamie Lynn question. I talked about Lou Taylor. What I do want to say is that I think Jamie Lynn has been painted into a corner. In my opinion, I think she doesn't feel comfortable to talk about Britney in this entire situation, and she's trying to do her Zoe 101 thing and trying to have her own career at the moment. But all she's getting is like an overwhelming wave of hate. And whether you agree with Jamie Lynn or not, whether you think she has ties to Lou Taylor or not, I don't think that it's right to bash somebody and to hate somebody. I think the world would be a much better place if we tried to have some sort of understanding towards somebody else, especially if we just did not get where they were coming from, and just try to show some compassion. Now, in terms of Jamie Lynn, I personally don't bash her. I don't go out of my way to say negative things. In fact, on Exhale, my community, I actually put a moderation message at the top of almost all of her threads saying, please make sure that the comments are respectful. Just as a reminder, people who want to just go into the topic and bash her, I just think it's not right and it doesn't sit well with me. And it doesn't matter who it is. I just want people to practice kindness. It's easier said than done. It's actually pretty easy to be mean and rude on the internet because there's really no accountability. It actually takes a lot of energy to be kind. It takes work to go that extra step. So if you're watching this, please be kind. I'm gonna do one or two more questions because I think this video is getting long, but I would like to make a part 2 of this series. Someone said, do you think the conservatorship might be a good thing for Britney without Jamie? I do think there's a chance that Britney's okay with the conservatorship arrangement, just not necessarily how it's being conducted. Part of me also thinks that even if Britney's okay with this conservatorship, that it still doesn't mean that it should be in place, because really it strips her from a lot of civil liberties that I don't think should be taken from her. So even if she's cool with the situation, I still am not convinced that it should remain. Honestly, at this point, something has to give. There needs to be some change or the fan base will never Ani, you have to get down. I think that it's taken so much from her that something has... Ani... Someone said, what was the reason you stopped spreading Free Britney in 2008 after her team threatened you? I've literally been writing about Free Britney and the conservatorship this whole entire time. Even after they threatened to sue me and I was scared out of my mind, I still continue to speak out about it. I've had a very public stance through this whole thing. I think because I haven't necessarily been overt about it and posting it all over my social media accounts and attending the Free Britney rallies, that there's this perception that I am either anti-Free Britney or neutral. And I want to say that I'm pro-Free Britney. Free Britney stands for a call to action for Britney to gain her rights back. And I will always be supportive of that. Same goes for anyone who's had their rights unjustly stripped from them. So I'm gonna have to agree to disagree on this one. All right, and the last question is, does Britney see her kids? So this is obviously a very touchy subject, but it is pretty sad that we actually haven't seen Britney with her kids in a very, very long time. Even on their birthdays recently, she didn't actually post a picture with them. She posted a picture of a sunset. And unfortunately, her custodial time has been reduced because of her father. In a nutshell, what happened was that her father allegedly got into a physical altercation with one of her sons. Kevin Federline got a restraining order against Mr. Spears, which resulted in him not being able to see Britney's kids for the next 3 years. What happened because of that was that a judge decided to reduce Britney's custodial time, essentially because if they're in Britney's care and Britney's conservator, who's supposed to be caring for her, is physically abusing the kids, that's obviously problematic, and it's important to keep the kids out of a situation like that. It's just another example of why this conservatorship and the involvement with her dad is just not working. All right, guys, thank you so much for the questions. I know that this was a lengthy video, but there's a lot to cover and there's still so much more to unwrap. If you made it this far into the video, please drop me a line in the comments. I'd love to chat with you. I know that this video wasn't the happiest one, but I do think it's important for more people to get an understanding of what's going on, and I'd love to be able to open up more and more about it. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. It's greatly appreciated, more than you know. If you haven't already, smash that like button, and I'll see you in the next video. Play that outro.